Hey guys, Parallel here, and welcome to Star Trek Online. In this video, I am going to be taking a look at the one and only Tholian Recluse carrier. Now, this is actually a pretty old ship, but I just recently got my hands on this and I'm really excited about it. So I just wanted to do a video on this and give a nice overview of this ship and show how it performs. This really is a historic ship in Star Trek Online, the game. It is one of the best support carriers out there for really helping out your team and buffing the damage output of your entire team. It really has some specialized roles that it can fulfill, and really a lot of the DPS leagues in their top DPS runs that they always do, they almost always have at least one or more Tholian Recluse carriers in those runs because of the support it can provide. It really is a really fantastic carrier. It's a lot of fun to fly too. I've been having a lot of fun with it the last few days. So I thought I would go through and give a nice overview of the ship. I might even talk a little bit about what you have to do to obtain this ship. It really is a difficult ship to obtain because it is a low-B ship, and you also have to buy some rather expensive frigate pets in order to make it fully effective. So I may go through that, but of course I will go through the build that I'm using for this ship. Take it to the tailor and get a good look with it. I actually have a pretty nice design on mine that I kind of like with the new Iconian look to it. The Iconian skin from the shield, it has a nice it makes it look really quite cool. I'm pretty happy with how the look of it is. So I will do that, and then we'll take it through a run in Argala Patrol. I don't think I'll be doing an ISA run tonight just because the server performance has been so bad the last few days. I have not been able to do a good run on this at all. I mean, ISA has been almost unplayable with all of the lag going on. So that's a bit unfortunate. I may do a video later once I've flown this a bit more and kind of optimize my build. I may go and do another ISA and get a good parse and to see how this really does perform. But I do want to at least take it into an Argala Patrol just so you can see it in action and we can take a look at how well it really does. So let's start out here and take a look at the build. I actually have mostly pulled this build from my Vesta. Just because this is basically the best gear that I have right now. I may mention a few options here as I'm going through here. I'll show you what I have currently on this build so you can see how this build performs, but there are definitely a lot of ways to build this ship that are probably superior to what I'm showing here. It is a long-term goal of mine to get a more debuffing energy type. Like I'm thinking about at some point investing in the the polarized disruptors, I believe. Those have the Polaron energy debuff and the disruptor hull debuff. So that's probably what I would consider one of the better weapons on this ship. I would like to move towards that eventually, but those weapons are somewhat expensive and I don't have any of them upgraded. And with the last weekend with the upgrade event, I just blew a whole bunch of blew pretty much all of my tech upgrades, so I won't be doing any new energy type builds at this point. But what I have here now is the anti-proton beam arrays, and this ship is a carrier. It does have the standard 3 front and 3 rear weapon configuration, and I do recommend beam arrays on this ship. And just to say up front, kind of the theme of this ship, this is a really good ship at debuffing, and in particular this is a ship where it gets all of its power is from stacking attack pattern beta debuffs on the enemy and spreading it around to many enemies. So that's kind of the focus of this build. It's kind of the ultimate debuffing machine. I mean, there really is no ship that can compete with this in that department. And it's also that a lot of that power comes from its pets, which I will go through in more detail later. Alright, so I would definitely go with beam arrays. It is a carrier, so it's pretty slow to turn, and you want the full arc of your beam arrays. So I'm using anti-proton beams. You can see here the mods that I'm using. Crit D and Crit H combination on all of the beams here. Most of them are epic with one ultra rare. I am also running the Iconian 3-piece set. So I have the Iconian deflector, impulse engines, and shields. The shields I did get up to Mark 14 during the last upgrade event, so that's nice. I've been enjoying a little more shielding. And I will run the standard plasma integrated warp core that is very popular right now because of the subsystem resistance to power drain on your subsystems, making your weapons cost a little less power. That's always a good thing. So there we go. I will show you, let's just go over the Iconian 3-piece just so you can see what's going on there. And it kind of goes well with this ship, I think. The Iconian set, the 3-piece bonus gives you a, whenever you're fighting your energy weapons, it gives you a 5% chance to grant a 15% all energy damage to 8 seconds to all allies within 10 kilometers, and it stacks 3 times. Now, I actually haven't tested this yet, but I might check when we go into Argala to see if this actually buffs the carrier pets, which would make this really, really good, a really good set for this ship. So definitely recommend that Iconian set. I'm also using the Temporal Negotiator and the Subspace Field Modulator, and I have been a lot of commenters have informed me that the Pirate Distress Call and also the new Delta Alliance reinforcements, which I just recently got as well, you don't actually have to put these into your device slots in order to use them. You can just put as long as they're in your inventory, you can actually go into your power tray and they will be there. So you don't need to actually take up a device slot. So thank you to those commenters for that tip. I am also running in my consoles here. Well, you can see it has the this is actually a tier 5U upgrade. As you probably know, all of the low-buy ships have a free tier 5U upgrade. So you do get the tier 5U upgrade, which means you have a total of 11 console slots. Comes with a 4 engineering, 4 science, and 3 tactical. Kind of a pretty balanced layout, not bad at all. I believe for the T5U upgrade, you actually get 1 additional tactical slot. So for this build, I am of course putting in my Plasmonic Leech. If you have one of these, it's pretty much standard to put this on every ship. It provides a lot of power to your subsystems, and it scales with the flow capacitor skill. So definitely a must-have on pretty much any ship build for getting your power levels up. And it synergizes well with any of the AMP warp cores, because with the Plasmonic Leech you shouldn't have any problem getting all of your subsystem power levels up to 75 or higher and getting that AMP bonus on your warp core. I'm also running the very powerful regenerative integrity field from the Kobali Samsar. It has a nice hull healing buff passive, and it also has active massive hull regen. This is a tanker's dream. I mean, it really adds a lot of survivability to your ship. Pretty good console on any ship for survivability. Now, I am switching things up a little bit here. I'm using kind of 2 gimmick consoles just because I wanted to try them out on this ship. I've heard they are good on the Tholian Recluse. But in all honesty, I probably will move these out and just go back to my staple 0-point energy conduit from the Romulan reputation, and then the my assimilated console. Now, this this console here is what you could get with the Tholian Recluse, is the Tholian Tetrian Grid. What it does is gives you an energy damage buff that goes to all of your pets, and it can stack up to, what does it say, 3. All Tholian Recluse, 2 Tetrian beams for. I want to say it can stack 3 times. I can't remember where I saw that. Yeah, effects created 3 max. Yeah, stacks 3 times. Kind of how this works is that when you activate this, it shoots out kind of a Tetrion web that hits all of your fighters, and it gives them a damage buff for a short amount of time. It is a significant damage buff, and I believe it is even possible for it to hit other players in your team. I believe this is one of the things that they use in those high DPS runs. If you get lucky and you could get 3 stacks onto your main DPS person who's doing the run, it can give them a really huge buff for. It only lasts for 5 seconds though, so it's kind of one of the main limitations. And that's honestly why in the long term I probably won't use this console. It's just such a long cooldown time for only a 5-second buff. Even though it is a significant buff, it's just very, very short. Yeah, 5 seconds per 3 minutes. Is it 3 minutes? 2 or 3 minutes is just such a short amount of time where you actually can have that buff. I think the passive effects of the other consoles are probably superior. The other console I'm trying out is the Subspace Integration Circuit. This one is an interesting console. It was fairly cheap, so on the exchange, under 1 million credits, so you can pick this up pretty cheap if you want to give it a try. It is a bit gimmicky, but again, it's pretty fun. What you can do is combo this with your gravity well, throw out a gravity well, suck all the ships in, and then throw this down, and it opens up basically a black hole, a subspace rupture for 10 seconds, and all enemies within that they have a massive minus perception and flight speed, and it puts their weapons offline. And when it collapses, it does some kinetic damage as well. But the nice thing here is that the idea is, for example, in ISA, you suck all the spheres into your gravity well, you drop this, and it will actually make all of these spheres' weapons go offline and make it safe for your DPS, your DPSers to go in there and, lay waste to a helpless clump of spheres. That's kind of the idea there. In my science consoles, I am using the plasma generating weapon signature nullifiers, the embassy consoles that give you the plasma explosion procs. Now, as you may have heard, last week these consoles were pretty significantly nerfed. They nerfed the ability for these consoles to crit when using fire at will, and they just flat out nerfed the the proc damage, the base damage, by 25%. So these are hit pretty hard. I expect that DPS numbers and average will be dropping pretty much across the board, as these consoles were used by all top DPS runs. And yeah, I've used them on a lot of my builds as well, in all honesty. I expect all my previous builds that I had been doing will probably drop a fair amount of DPS. I want to say in some of my builds, like the Nandy build, which is makes very good use of these signature nullifier, these plasma generating signature nullifiers. In that build, I want to say plasma explosions are almost 20% of the DPS, and the numbers I've been hearing is that of the plasma damage done by these consoles, it's probably reduced by about 50%. So if these were, in some builds, in more science-heavy builds, or in the Nandy, it will probably be a very significant drop in your DPS. If they're doing 20% of your DPS, so that 10% of that was probably cut off, so probably 10% of your overall DPS is lost. So in a 30 you know, a 30-some K DPS build, which are what most of my builds get, you're talking about losing, you know, a 3K DPS. So pretty significant hit. Not the end of the world. I mean, these consoles still are probably the best in slot you can get, just because they are science consoles, and you know, if you're looking to do a lot of damage, these are still the best console you could put in that slot. So, you know, that's my thoughts on this nerf. There was a lot of controversy about this nerf from the community. You know, how it was missed out of the triple patch notes, and it was, you know, thought to be a stealth nerf, and all kinds of things there. I mean, I've played a lot of MMOs, so I'm pretty much nerf proof at this point. Nerfs don't get to me anymore. I just go with the flow. But I will say, just in general, Cryptic, they're kind of stuck in the old school MMO line of thought, where they, you know, they think, well, we need to over nerf things instead of, you know, so people don't get mad if we, you know, have to nerf it multiple times. Whereas I think a lot of the newer MMOs, or even like MOBAs, I'm thinking here about like maybe Riot with League of Legends, how they've kind of evolved to more of a iterative cycle, where they will make small incremental changes and then see how they play out, and then make more small incremental changes if that first round did not get them where they want. And that's kind of the approach to, you know, game balance changes that I like to see. Because I think in this particular case with the plasma consoles, I think probably the double nerf was a lot to handle all at once. For example, they could have just taken away the chance to crit and left the base damage alone, done that as their first iteration, you know, then take a look at the metrics for a few weeks, see how things shake out. Are these consoles still overperforming in their opinion? And then make another small incremental nerf if they aren't. Or maybe make an incremental buff if they found, yeah, it really was the crit that was causing all of the, you know, the DPS meters to be overscaled and whatnot, and that was the real issue, and the 25% base damage nerf might not have been needed. So that's just my thoughts on it. I'd like to see Cryptic adopt a more modern view of game balance, and, you know, kind of follow in Riot's footsteps and other game companies that have been doing more incremental nerfs and buffs, rather than, you know, just one massive buff all at once to try to, you know, not have multiple backlashes from the community. Just try to get it all done at one time. So there's that on the plasma nerf. They're still good, still use them, and yeah, they will still perform as pretty much the best in slot for now. In the tactical consoles, I have been using and continue to use the vulnerability locators for anti-proton damage, since that is the energy type I am using. And now, finally, in the hangars, I am of course using the Elite Tholian Mesh Weavers. These are the pets that give the Tholian Recluse its, you know, its key role, its domination of the role of debuffing enemies and buffing your team damage output against those enemies. So as I have moused over here, you can see these Mesh Weavers. Just take a look at their abilities and you'll see what gives them the power. Okay, they've got two Tetrion dual beam banks, and then they also have a Tetrion beam array. Important, because the beam array has a nice wide arc. They have the two dual beam banks as well, but they have the beam array for the nice wide arc. They have a torpedo, not a big deal, but the next two abilities, they have beam array, fire at will, so that every single one of these fighters, well, I guess these are more frigates, every one of these frigates you launch have fire at will. And the next thing, attack pattern beta 3. So fire at will 3 and attack pattern beta 3 on every single, you know, and they also have a beam array. So every single one of these fighters, and if you launch both of your hangars, that means you'll have 4 of these out there flying around, because they are frigates. You only get 2 per hangar. Every single one of these things is going to be spreading around fire at wills with attack pattern beta. They will be debuffing everything with attack pattern beta. And you have multiple of these. They all may be hitting the same target and stacking it up. So it is, I mean, that's what this Tholian Recluse is all about. It's all about attack pattern betas and just flooring out the resistances, the hull resistances of all of the enemies. And what that does is all of your team hitting those enemies then gets a massive boost to their damage, because they're hitting a target with with all of its resistances reduced. And the way that damage stacking works in this game is that when the total damage that's impacting on the enemy is going to be buffed, or is going to be, it's not going to be reduced by any damage by enemy resistances. So it'll actually do more damage total, coming from all sources, from all of your teammates. It really is the strength of the Recluse, is in these elite Tholian mesh weavers. Alright, so that is the build. Let's take a quick look here while I have this up at the masteries for the ship. Once you get the free upgrade to tier 5U, you do get a set of masteries. I believe it's the carrier set, where you get quick deployment. So you get a 20% recharge time reduction on your carrier launch times, or your hangar launch times, and a bonus to ranking up your pets. You get a 10% hull hit points. You get your extra shield regeneration and reduction to shield damage by 5%. It's a pretty good shield tank. And you've got your 10% shield hit points. Alright, I will quickly show my skill page and not go into too much detail here, but I will show it in case you are interested to see. I do max out flow caps to take advantage of my plasmonic leech. I do have particle generators maxed out as well, just because I do also have my exotic damage builds. And since I'll be using I transferred over my embassy consoles, which all have the particle gen. I'll show you here. You can see all the embassy consoles have particle gen as their modifier. So this can actually do a fair amount of exotic damage, even though it's not really the focus of this build, but it's just how it works out, because I did transfer over all of my top gear from my Vesta. So those are the skills. Of course, max out your electroplasma systems and warp core efficiency. Those are key ones. I also like, of course, to max out structural integrity to get your max hull, and shield systems to get your max shield capacity. Make the carrier as tanky as possible. It is a very tanky carrier. I haven't had much problem with being destroyed, even in pretty high, in advanced queues. It does fine survivability wise. For my specializations, how many points do I got in here? 22, I think. Yeah, 22 points into intelligence and 16 points into pilot. Mostly just to grab all of the space abilities in the intelligence area. The flanking ability is nice. You can see here the traits that I'm running. I of course run accurate for the 10% accuracy, elusive for the 10% defense, warp theorist for the extra warp core efficiency, and EPS is nice. I of course run beam barrage. I am still running particle manipulator again, as I said. This is kind of from my Vesta build. And since I will be throwing out gravity wells and whatnot, I guess it still would be nice to have this to get my additional crit chance on exotic damage and crit severity. Conservation of energy. Again, this is more for exotic damage. It helps to do more damage with your gravity wells. Photonic capacitor, this is really cool for science characters. This is the ability that gives you reduction in cooldown, massive reduction in cooldown on your photonic fleet, which incidentally is very good on the Tholian Recluse, because debuffing all of enemies with the attack pattern betas will actually increase the output of your pets, the damage output they do, because they will be hitting enemies with their resistances debuffed already. So that is a good way to actually buff the damage of your pets, including your photonic fleet. Point blank shot I'm also running to get the damage when up close to the target, and astrophysicist for the extra flow caps and particle gen. In my traits, I'm running all hands on deck. One of the best starship traits out, honestly the best starship trait out there in my opinion. Gives you a minus 10% recharge time on all of your science bridge officer abilities, and a 5% recharge time on all your captain abilities, and it can trigger once every 5 seconds, and it happens whenever you activate a tactical or command ability. This is just an amazing way for keeping all your science cooldowns low and your captain abilities cooldowns decently low. Amazing ability. Definitely pick that up. You get that off of the Presidio command cruiser in the C-store. Emergency weapon cycle, another great ability which was recently fixed and buffed. It was actually buffed and fixed, and now it has a 20% firing cycle haste for energy weapons. And I've seen some of the testing on this that it really is working now, and it does increase the actual cycle time of your weapons. Pretty cool. And they buffed it from, it used to be 10%, now it's 20%. So definitely good there. Plus it gives you the minus 25% weapon power cost for 30 seconds when using your emergency powered weapons, which if you're running a Drake build or an Ox to Bat build, you can keep your emergency powered weapons up 100% of the time, so you will have that 25% weapon power cost reduction all the time. Stack that on with your warp core, which has energy reduction, means that you get a pretty significant cost reduction on your energy weapons, which is why you saw in my build I wasn't actually running the Borg 2-piece set to reduce energy weapon power cost. I can get by okay. I still do see my energy dip, you know, down to like, I think about 118 is what it dips down to while I'm, you know, in the middle of my firing cycle. So it doesn't stay capped out. So it might still be good to put the Borg 2-piece in there. I'll investigate that and play around with it a bit. And the fourth trait in here, I still have emitter synergy in here, because again, this is for my exotic damage build. There are quite a few different things you could actually put in here. You could actually put in reactive repair nanites, might be good to have your heals also hit your all targets within 5 kilometers, so it'll hit your hangar pets out there. Oh, I skipped over reciprocity. Sorry. The third ability there is starship trait is reciprocity. This one, another core ability that's very powerful. Every time you're missed by an enemy, it gives you a minus 10% recharge time on your intelligence and tactical bridge officer abilities. That makes it so you can keep your attack pattern betas and fire at wills cycling nice and fast, you know, right on cooldown. So reciprocity, great trait. You get this from the, I believe it's the Phantom Intel Escort. So yeah, definitely I put those 3 abilities on almost every build. They're generally useful in all situations. They perform well. The emergency weapon cycle performs great on almost every ship. And then the other 2 on reducing the cooldowns of your tactical, science, and captain abilities. Really good. For the last ability, again, I have an emitter synergy in there. There's a lot of other things you would put in there. Pedal to the metal, you could put in there. Carriers are pretty slow. I mean, you could be lumbering around at full throttle and get that buff that way, and not worry about, you know, passing by your targets and whatnot. You'll be moving slow enough where it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But Desperate Repairs would be another good one. That one's really good for, it gives you a massive hull heal after getting crit 3 times. So So yeah, a lot of different options. That fourth slot there is really your choice. The other thing about Emitter Synergy is not just the exotic damage, but also gives you plus 75% to shield heals. So if you're going for a more supportive role, this gives you that a pretty good, nice chunk of buff to your shield healing capabilities. For my reputation traits, I am running the standard here, crit precision for the extra crit chance, advanced targeting systems for the crit severity, auxiliary power configuration offense for the, since I'll be running a high aux power, this is a kind of a science-y carrier, so it will have a high aux power. You'll be getting a lot of benefit from this. And I just realized I still have auxiliary power configuration defense slotted in here, and I'm actually tempted, since this ship already is pretty tanky, I may drop this and go with the, since I'm going for, you know, the full debuffing potential, go with the enhanced armor penetration. But then again, I don't know, I have to double check how diminishing returns works on on hull, on attack pattern beta and hull resistance debuffs, because there may be a point where if you have so many attack pattern betas stacked on the enemy already, it might not really be worth it to put this extra 5% on here, which is the way this ability works. This 5% armor penetration, it actually puts a very short duration 5% debuff onto the enemy's hull resistances. So it is kind of, if you are going for that full debuff theme, that would be a good ability there. But like I said, if you're already debuffing it with lots of attack pattern betas, the diminishing returns might make it not really worth it. I'll leave it in there for now. I'll have to do a little more investigation on that. Alright, and for my bridge officers. Now, one of the cool things about the Tholian Recluse is that it comes with the a Commander Universal. And correct me if I'm wrong here, someone, but this might be, I think, the only ship that comes with a Commander Universal. Which makes the ship, of course, very flexible. Though looking at the other bridge officer seating, you can kind of see what, it kind of makes your choice clear what you should put in here. Because if you don't put a tactical officer here as the commander role, you'll only have one tactical ability, because the other tactical officer is an ensign, and that's it. And I don't know, only one tactical ability on a ship is just not, I don't know, not viable, at least not for my playstyle in any way. So I would definitely recommend putting a tactical officer here. I mean, you could put like a science or commander engineer in here and just make this like the ultimate buffing and healing ship if you want to. But you know, if you're going for some kind of a particular role in a static group, I don't run with a static group at all, so I don't really have that that option. I need to be self-sufficient in this ship, so I am going to be using the tactical as the commander universal here. So, in keeping with the theme of this ship of spreading around as many attack pattern betas as possible, I do have 2 fire at wills and 2 attack pattern betas in the slots here. This means I'll be constantly, in addition to my 4 Meshweaver pets, I will also be throwing around lots of fire at wills with lots of attack pattern betas, debuffing everything in sight. And it's kind of a cool effect. I'm debuffing the enemy and makes my pets do more damage. My pets are debuffing the enemy and making me do more damage. It's kind of a virtuous cycle that you'd be kind of surprised how much damage you can put out in this ship. It's definitely no slouch in the damage department. Even though it has a lot of support capabilities, it can put out its own fair amount of damage. And it really buffs the damage of your team. Alright, and then in the ensign, I throw in a tactical team here. It helps that you're in a slow turning carrier, and you know, you may have one shield facing exposed, and tactical team really helps with that. In the engineer here, you have lieutenant commander and engineer. And just real quick, in the tactical stations, I'm using, of course, Romulans with the superior Romulan operative trait to get that extra crit and crit severity for those 2 slots. And for the engineer here, I'm using my Nausicaan, and you get from diplomacy. And in this case, I'm running emergency power to shields and emergency power to weapons. And then in the last slot here, I put engineering team 2. There are a few more options you could put in here as well. If you have enough money, you could go for that structural integrity, what is it called? Structural collapse or structural integrity collapse. That's that new engineering ability that debuffs enemy hull resistances as well. So it would be kind of good at keeping with the theme of this ship. Just another debuff for the enemy hull. I don't have it's a very expensive skill, so I haven't invested in that yet. But engineering team is just a great all-around engineering heal to have. You could probably maybe put like an Oxus Sif in here. It's another good hull heal. But engineering team is a little bit nicer to have just for that, to be able to remove debuffs, engineering debuffs. So in the science slots here, I am running, you do get a lieutenant commander science. I'm running here my hierarchy officer with the pirate ability, and he will be having science team 1 and hazard emitters 2 and gravity well in the lieutenant commander slot. Since this is kind of a sciencey ship, it is always nice to have that gravity well available. It does do, it does some exotic damage, not a huge amount, but it is there, and it's mostly for the utility of sucking all the ships in. And then you'd be able to debuff them all and have your whole team lay waste to them. So that works really well. Again, in the last slot here, you have an ensign science. This is kind of a flex slot as well. I put in transfer shield strength here, going along the idea of, since I'm running the emitter synergy trait, buffs my shield heals. This is one of the best shield heals out there. And it even reduces damage to shields while it's running, so it's definitely a good ability. I mean, you could run other things in here. I was even thinking of running a tractor beam repulsors in one of the slots, maybe in the lieutenant commander slot here, or in the lieutenant slot here, just to have another exotic damage source that could be also useful, and also helps with the controlling ships. That's another option to consider. But pretty flexible bridge officer layout. The Commander Universal is pretty nice, but I do recommend putting in the tactical there. And finally, for the build, let's take a look at the duty officers. Let's take a look at my roster, active space. Now, as I said, I was running a Drake build. I do have 3 rare damage control engineers. And if you're unfamiliar with how a Drake build works, you need 3, well, you don't need 3, but this is the way to make it the most consistent, is if you stack up 3 of these damage control engineers, they reduce the recharge time on your emergency power to subsystem abilities. So since I'm running both emergency power to weapons and emergency power to shields, both of these, every time they trigger, have a 30% chance per each of these doffs, so a 3 times 30% chance to shorten the cooldown time on both of the abilities. So as these abilities are triggering, they have the 15-second shared cooldown. So every 15 seconds, one of these should be triggering, and as long as you have 3 damage control engineers here, that is usually enough to reduce the cooldown time enough of both of the abilities so that they are actually both up within the 30 seconds duration, so they can be up near permanent. So if you want to run a Drake build, definitely run 2 emergency power to abilities. You could do engines and weapons. I definitely recommend weapons, of course, just because it is such a great ability all by itself, giving you a flat out weapon damage buff and energy to your weapon system. So that's the strength of a Drake build. And of course, the nice thing about Drake build is that you can also keep your auxiliary power high and take advantage of the science abilities, which I'll scale off that, and And yeah, so, and your traits, that's what I was going to say. Your Nukara offensive traits also scale off your auxiliary, so good to have. I still have Gragamal in here. For tractor beam repulsors, this makes your tractor beam repulsors into a pull instead of a push. Honestly, if you ever want to use the ability tractor beam repulsors, I almost consider this officer mandatory. He is pretty expensive on the exchange, but if you do want to, use tractor beam repulsors, I definitely recommend him so you don't keep pushing ships out of range and make everyone on your team mad. Since I am not running tractor beam repulsors at the moment, I'm going to switch this to a con officer, which will give me... Oh, this officer is the evasive maneuvers one. Well, I'll run a green one for now. I need to buy a decent con officer here. But the con officers give you a buff to your tactical team, reduces the recharge time on that. Since I am running an attack team and no tractor beam repulsors, I'm going to swap these two out and run a con officer there. I do recommend that. And then in the last one here, I am running my gravimetric scientist who has a chance to create aftershocks with your gravity well. Kind of a cool ability if you're running gravity wells. Sometimes you'll spawn up to a couple additional gravity wells to keep enemies bunched up for longer. It is useful. It does proc a decent amount as well, so I do recommend it. I'm trying to think of what else I could put in here. I think the other thing you could put in here is you could put Agent Nerul in here. He would be certainly a good... Actually, that's right. Agent Nerul triggers off attack pattern beta, and I'm running a lot of attack pattern betas. That's really tempting. I'm running 2 copies of attack pattern beta. I might get a lot of hull healing out of this. Let's go ahead and do that for now, just for fun. I run Agent Nerul and a con officer, and then my 3 damage control engineers to complete out the Drake build. Alright, so that is the build. Let's go ahead and head over to the ship tailor and take a look. I will show you... First I'll just show you the base look of the ship. Like I said, this is an old ship. I'm sure many people are very familiar with what Recluses look like. There's a lot of NPC Recluses as well. If you do any of the Crystalline Entity queues, you've probably seen lots and lots of Tholian Recluses. And the ship tailor is actually over here. You've probably seen the Recluse a lot of different times, so I don't know how much we need to go into the customization options here. Before I do that, let me just quickly turn off the Iconian so you can see the base look of the ship. So not many options here. It is a low-B ship, so it doesn't have that many different skins to choose from. You do get your choice of patterns. I usually go with the Corvus pattern. You do get only 2 materials. You get your Tholian material, which gives you the more traditional Tholian look, and you get your upgrade material. Now, and that's pretty much that's it. That's all the options you get. Now, if you have the upgrade material and use the Corvus pattern and you choose the darkest colors here, let me cancel out and let's go ahead and just beam right up and take a look at the ship in space. And I'll show you what it looks like with the Iconian shield on, which gives it the Iconian skin. And I personally think it looks really cool. I really like how this looks with the Iconian skin. And let's enable the visuals here. So you can see with the upgrade, let's turn off the UI here. With the upgrade skin selected and the Iconian shield, has a very, very cool look to it. Almost a kind of a black metallic or grayish metallic look with the the red highlights from the Iconian set. Kind of turns the engines into a more yellowish orange color. And just a really nice looking ship with the with the Iconian skin, using the upgrade visuals. Just really cool. I like how the interior, you know, the struts of the ship look. Everything about the ship just looks really amazing. You got these little spikes here. They have a cool kind of reddish lighting in the middle. Here's the little effect of the Iconian deflector array. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this looks with the Iconian set. Very cool looking ship. All right, let's turn on the UI here. Let's launch some of these famous Meshweaver pets. Let's see if we can take a look at these. They should fly into formation after you launch them. You can see with the cooldown reduction, they're only about a 16-second cooldown with the Starship Mastery for carriers. Let's see if I can try to zoom in on one of these things. So there you go. There is the Tholian Meshweavers. Pretty cool looking fighters as well. Have the kind of the triangular theme going on with Tholians. That looks pretty cool. Let's target one here and take a look. They do have 44,000 hull, so not bad at all. They are frigates. That's why you can only have 4 of them out. With both hangars fully launched, you only get 4 of them. But they are very durable ships. All right, so let's turn on the throttle here. And while I'm here in out in space, let's take a look at the stats of the ship. I am at full throttle right now. You can see my bonus defense is 85%. My EPS rate is 13.8 per second. So, you know, maybe slightly above average with the build that I'm using. Not super huge, but certainly above average. Has 2,500 crew, so a big crew. The turn rate is only 10 degrees per second at full throttle, so yeah, not the best turn rate. It is for a carrier, it's actually not too bad, but here, you can see how fast I'm turning. 10 degrees per second, though, is slow. That's why I definitely recommend the beam arrays for this thing. And here's with evasive maneuvers. You can see how fast the turn rate is. Yeah, if you really need to swing around with this thing, you really gotta hit that evasive maneuvers. That's true with honestly a lot of carriers. It's just nature of the size of these ships. So, for resistances, looking at about a 20% kinetic resist, 13-14% for the rest. With the Iconian shields, I am actually up to 15,000 shield, so that's actually quite good. I did get my shields up to Mark 14, so this is a pretty solid shield tank. And my hull is up to 85,000, so pretty strong hull as well. So as far as carriers go, I mean, it is a pretty solid ship. It can take the damage. Since it's not very maneuverable, that's a good thing. And that's how it goes. As I said, this is a particle gen sort of build. So I do have 260 into particle gens, which if you take a look at my particle manipulator trait, it does give me that 50% chance to crit and a 20% crit severity. So my gravity well should be doing pretty good damage. All right, those are the stats. Let's get this thing into some action here. Let's head out, head to Argala and do a run. see how this thing does in action. I've done, you know, I've only had the ship for a few days now. I've only done a few runs, but I am already impressed. The stacking of attack pattern beta from all the different sources, from your ship, from all of your pets, really adds up. Makes this a pretty fantastic ship. Even soloing, you can stack up tons of attack pattern betas all over the place, and really amplifies your overall damage. I did decide to get this ship on my science officer, just kind of keeping with the theme of being more debuff oriented. But this is also very good on a tactical officer, you know, with tactical initiative and you know, keeping the cooldowns of your team low. So I think if you're going more for your own, if you want to have higher damage output, you know, get this on your tactical commander. If you want to go more with the debuffing, you know, with sensor scan and whatnot, and also having your photonic fleet, you know, which also benefits from all the targets being heavily debuffed by attack pattern beta. So it really is, I mean, it's a pretty good ship on either a science captain or a tactical captain, I think. It even, I mean, even engineers are fine for it as well. I mean, engineers are kind of pretty good for if you want to make your carrier a bit more tanky, get right into the thick of things. You know, that does help carriers in particular, just because they are slow turning and they can, you know, they can be subject to taking a lot of damage on one shield facing. So I mean, any captain can work. I chose on science, which I like kind of along with the debuff theme, but you know, that or tactical I would recommend, and even engineer can work if you want to make it work. All right, let's head in. Now, one thing I do want to try, and maybe, I don't know if anyone, maybe some people out there haven't seen it yet, but where did I put it? Yes, well, let me get my pet hangers out here first. The Delta Alliance Reinforcements Beacon. If you complete the current featured episode, you get this as one of the options, and I definitely recommend you hurry, because this featured episode will be going away on Thursday, this coming Thursday. So definitely get in there and get this this reward, this Delta Alliance Beacon. It kind of replaces, as a shared cooldown with your Nimbus Pirate Beacon. So you can't really use both of them, but I've started using this one, and it is pretty amazing. It calls in like three of your escorts from so three of the new fighter type escorts that came out, and they really do still have some impressive abilities. So it is a fun ability to use. Definitely recommend it over the Nimbus Pirate in any case. So I'll use that here in a minute. So in the next part of this mission, when the four was it Kazon that I'm fighting, I think? Yes, it was Kazon. When the 4 Kazon spawned, Kazon cruisers, I'm going to gravity well them and show off the subspace rupture ability from the console. And I'll also probably trigger my Tholian Tetrion grid to buff all the pets once they're all in range, and just lay down a massive amount of crowd control and damage in a short amount of time. I will also summon all of my photonic fleet and the Delta Alliance reinforcements, and should make for a pretty nice little light show. So we're going to close in here as soon as we get in range. I'm going to activate my science fleet as well. Let's use this. Throw in the black hole. Let's use my Tholian. And yeah, so you can see the Tholians are... I didn't even have a chance to summon my pets yet. They're already dead. You can see the Mesh Weavers there were just throwing beam rays all over the place. Everything is massively debuffed. I summoned in my Delta Alliance reinforcements. You can see you get an Icarus escort, I got an Ajax escort, and a Mercury. So very cool. You see they're going around making mincemeat and everything. Both of those carriers are already dead. That carrier is already dead. Let's head over here to the next carrier. I mean, you can just see the amount of time it took me to tell you what I was doing, everything was already dead. I mean, this ship just destroys. Especially with, you know, with having all of those pets out and all of your mesh weavers and yourself putting attack pattern beta on everything. It really amplifies all of your pet damage into a really good, you know, to a really high level. You know what's funny is the Benthans are helping out as well, and they probably benefit from having everything being debuffed as well by attack pattern beta. He debuffed my weapons. Let's use Engineering Team to get those back. Alright, so that was fast. That was really fast. I'm showing 13k DPS, which is not bad. What I want to try to look at here when I come in and close in on this ship here is I want to see how many attack pattern betas get stacked up on him and all my pets start going in. You can see here it's, yeah, 2 are stacked up there. Even if they don't get stacked, oh, he's already dead. Well, there it is. That was definitely a very fast Argyle run. I'm showing 14k DPS. Yep, showing 14k DPS on that run, which is pretty good for an Argala. I mean, you always, you know, patrols, you know, solo patrols, you're not going to get as much DPS as you do in things like ISA, which have a lot more targets and a lot more constant shooting with less downtime between targets. But 14k DPS is really good. I'm very confident this could get well into the 30k DPS in an ISA. Like I said, I'm not going to run an ISA in this video just because the lag has been so bad. It is almost unplayable, and I don't really want to go through that frustration. Hopefully later in the week, you know, maybe after the Thursday patch, I'll give it another try, and I've had a little more experience on the build. I will maybe do another video and just take a look at this thing in an ISA and do a real parse and see how it does. I just hope that this Thursday's patch will maybe solve some of the lag issues. I know Cryptic they have said they're working on the lag issues, so maybe something will make it into this patch that will help out. But yeah, as you can see, that was a lot of fun to fly. I like having all the different pets. And I'm actually kind of curious here. Let me, if you can excuse my tabbing away here, I'm going to tab over to OBS and turn on my combat log reader. And let's see how it did. Hopefully you can see the combat log reader here. And let's pull up my abilities here. Very interesting. So you can see here the breakdown of what it was. Beamfire array. So top was pets, and this is summing up all of my pets. This is including the hangar pets, the photonic fleet pets, and the delta reinforcements that I summoned. Total pet sum was 4k DPS. Not bad. That was 30% of my damage. Pretty cool. I like that idea. I like, a carrier where all the pets are doing a lot of the work for you. That's kind of the idea of a carrier, I guess. That's so I do like that. Next one was Fire at Will 2, came at 24%. Plasma explosions, definitely less than they were, 18%. Still a significant portion of the damage on this ship because it is only, it's only running on its own. It only has, 6 beam arrays, a 3-3 arrangement. So it's probably a more significant percentage of the damage, but it's really only doing 2.5k DPS. So definitely nerfed from where it used to be. I mean, still decent. I mean, they still do contribute to your DPS. It's still doing a good percentage, so I would still equip them. I wouldn't say take these off, but definitely it takes a hit to your damage. The next one is my anti-proton arrays. and then Beamfire at Will 1. And then Gravity Well, yeah, didn't contribute a whole lot. But then again, I don't know, things were dying so fast. I don't think it had a chance to contribute a whole lot. We'll see how it does in like an ISA. I'm wondering if the pets, let's take a look here at what pets did the most. So my Mesh Weavers did the most. They did 14% of my pet damage. The Ajax Escort did almost as much. So that thing smokes. Look at this. I could see this thing doing a lot of damage if used, you know, in like an ISA. I could see this thing doing a lot of damage. Tholian Mesh Weaver. The Benthans, well, the Benthans weren't doing too bad themselves. They both did about 10%, just under 10% of the damage, more Mesh Weavers. Icarus came in below that. Mercury class came in below that, about 250 DPS. The Photonic fleet, the Escort. Actually, yeah, I think the Photonic, the Presidio, and the Geneva, I think those are all from the Photonic fleet. They were not as impressive as the Hanger Pets, but I did only summon them once, I think. I almost could have done it twice. I think if you could have gotten them out twice, it would have been a little bit better. But they're coming in at about 140 DPS. Subspace Rupture didn't do a whole lot. And I don't know what Unknown Pet is. Kind of curious as to what that might be. But there you go. That is the damage breakdown. Let me not forget to turn off Combat Log Reader here and go back to the game. And I guess just to give my final thoughts here on the Tholian Recluse. This ship is amazing. It's a great ship. It's even though it's an older ship in the game, it's been out for years now, it still holds up. It's a fun carrier to fly. It still looks fantastic. I really like the Tholian theme here with, you know, the angular triangle shape symmetry that it has. Still a great looking ship, and kind of, I think, gets a nice update with the Iconian reputation shield on there. Makes it look even better, and still remains as, you know, as the best support ship and debuffing ship out there. I mean, they still used by all the top DPS leagues to get those high DPS numbers in their runs. But even, you know, just using it as yourself, even if you're not a high DPS, or just going into any pickup team and having all your Tholian Mesh Weavers out there and yourself running attack pattern betas, you can really scale up the damage of your whole team. That really is one of the strengths of this ship. So it definitely holds up. It has survived the test of time. I have no regrets buying this thing. Even though it still remains an expensive ship. I think I will just quickly, if you are interested, you know, what it does take to, just so you have an idea of what it would take to actually acquire this ship. On the auction, or on the exchange, they cost around 125 million energy credits. That's about an average price. I actually bought mine in the last weekend when they were having a Lobby sale, and there were quite a few more on the exchange for sale. I actually picked this one up for 114 million, and I was pretty happy with that deal. Saved about, you know, 10 million or so over the average price. So that was good. But yeah, expect to pay around the 125 million energy credits. That right there is quite a bit of farming. I had been saving up for months, and I even sold some keys in the last key sale that went on to help boost that a bit. So, I mean, I'm not a massive farmer in this game, so I can't, you know, make 120 million credits that quickly. It took me several months to save that up. And on top of that, and on top of, you know, of course you want to have all your best gear on here, but on top of that, to make this ship really perform to its peak potential, you need these elite Tholian mesh weavers, which means you need to be in a fleet. And I can show you real quick where you get these Tholian mesh weavers. You have to be in a fleet with a tier 5 starbase. And these elite pets are not cheap. So each one of these elite pets cost 100,000 fleet credits and like 38,000 dilithium. So you're looking at, you have to buy 2 of them to fill up both of your hangars. So that's 200,000 fleet credits, 80,000 dilithium, and 125 million energy credits. That is a lot of investment. This is a long time for me to acquire this ship. And as you can see with that patrol that I did, it performs really well. I will, like I said, I'll take this through another ISA, or through an ISA once hopefully they fix the lag. This Thursday I'll give it another shot, and I'll post that video and see how it performs there. But I have high expectations, how it's been performing in the patrols. I expect it to perform well in an ISA. And, so even though it is a huge investment, it is, I think, worth it. The ship does perform. It has held up to the test of time. And it's still a great ship. Still looks great, still performs great. So yeah, what you do if you want to come down, if you want to buy those hangar pets, like I said, you have to be in a tier 5 starbase. You come talk to this guy, go to the store, and you take a look at your hangar. And this is where you can buy all of the elite pets. It may not show them here. I don't think it actually shows them here until you actually purchase the ship, and then it unlocks the ability to buy these pets from this vendor. But here they are, the elite Tholian mesh weavers, 100,000 fleet credits and 38,000 dilithium. So, and you need to buy 2 of them. So it is an investment, but it is a great ship. I want to try this. I want to see if this really helps out a pug's damage. I want to see if this helps out the whole group as well. If you're, if you pug a lot, or I pug a lot. I don't have a static team that I run with, so I do a lot of pickup groups, and I really have some hopes that this, running this thing. I don't see many of these Tholian Recluses around anymore. I don't know if people just don't like to fly them anymore, but I really want to be able, to take this into a pickup group and really buff everyone's damage and help out the whole team and just make the runs go more smoothly in general. That's kind of my goal with this ship. And I think it'll do a good job. It is performing up to my expectations so far, and I expect it will continue to do so. Alright, so that is it, everyone. That is the Tholian Recluse Carrier, an old but good ship. It holds up, and if you are looking to invest a lot of resources, it is worth the payoff. Yeah, it is. I definitely highly recommend this ship. Alright, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Bye for now.